George Soros, the ultra-leftist billionaire and architect of the liberal globalist order, is about to face criminal charges. That's exactly what President Trump is calling for. Trump is officially calling for Soros and his dithering son Alex to face federal racketeering charges in an American court. Make sure to stick with me to the very end of this video because we're going to see precisely how this 95-year-old globalist has lived long enough to see his entire legacy implode. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness as the far left desperately tries to stop the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age that you're making possible all over the world. So if you want a front row seat on how you're changing the world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Also, remember, registration for my America Awakened Masterclass is officially open. Now, this is your exclusive chance to join me for a powerful 2-hour deep dive into the rise of a new American golden age that'll be written about and talked about for centuries. So don't miss out. Scan that QR code now and lock in your spot. And you can even register as a VIP and we'll get some time to chat personally at the event. So don't wait. Spots are limited. So click on that link below and register today. George Soros, the avowed enemy of Trump and MAGA, and who's personally financed color revolutions all over the world to deliberately overturn Democrat elections, is facing a bombshell. President Trump recently took to Truth Social with what can only be described as a political nuclear weapon. In a post that sent shockwaves to the political establishment, Trump declared, quote, George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests and much more all throughout the United States. And of course, at the time, he's referring to, well, I guess most recently, the Mexican flag waving riots in L.A. We're now learning that an organization called the Party for Socialism and Liberation, the PSL, was helping to finance these riots. This is the group that's linked to the CCP through funding from socialist billionaire Neville Singham and his wife Jody Evans, who's the founder of the radical far-left protest movement Code Pink. But what's so interesting here is that our good friend Data Republican, in her research, she's part of Doge, she found that Singham and Soros tend to team up whenever they try to destroy and suppress populist movements around the world, and there may indeed have been some ties with Soros with the LA riots. Regardless, Trump is calling for Soros to face RICO charges, which stands, if you don't know, RICO stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, which is a criminal statute originally designed to take down the mafia. When prosecutors invoke RICO, they're essentially arguing that you're running a criminal enterprise, not just committing isolated crimes. And so what's so key here is that for well over 2 decades, observers have documented a troubling pattern. Wherever there is civil unrest in America and indeed around the world, George Soros' financial fingerprints seem to always appear. From the 2017 Charlottesville protest to the 2020 Black Lives Matter demonstrations, critics have, or even going back to the Maidan Revolution back in 2014 in Kiev, that helped launch this crazy war that we're in right now, critics have consistently pointed to the billionaire's extensive network of funding as a common denominator. The numbers are staggering. Soros has poured over $32 billion into his Open Society foundations, creating what many have described as a vast web of influence that spans from local district attorney races to nationwide protest movements. I mean, when you follow the money trail, as investigative journalists have done repeatedly, you find Soros-backed organizations funding everything from bail funds for arrested protesters to political action committees supporting progressive prosecutors. And Trump's warning about Soros' crazy West Coast friends that he details there later on in his Truth Social post, that's not hyperbole. Again, as we saw with this partnership with the LA riots, it's a direct reference to a documented network of progressive mega donors who transformed California politics and are now exporting their model nationwide. These aren't conspiracy theories. They are documented financial transactions that show how billionaire philanthropists, yeah, more like what would it be? Not what is the not misogynist? What is it? I forget what it is for hatred of men, but they can effectively purchase political outcomes when all is said and done, and they in effect have created a complex web of political networks that could be discerned when you simply follow the money. Speaking of that, I mean, I got to say, following the money trails in politics does require some serious mental acuity and clarity. And I need to tell you about something that's been an absolute game changer for my research process. Did you know that most methylene blue being sold online is the same grade used in fish tanks? I kid you not. Watch out for low quality bottles that are untested for heavy metals and made overseas. Instead, you can trust the wellness company's Recharge, a doctor-formulated supplement combining powdered methylene blue with NAD+ and PQQ. This methylene blue is USP grade, ensuring top-tier purity for maximum safety and effectiveness. In other words, it ain't the sketchy stuff you're going to find on Amazon. Recharge is formulated with research-backed ingredients to optimize brain function and cellular repair while supporting clean, lasting energy. Tap into cognitive and metabolic support that helps you stay energized, focused, and resilient all day long. Choose a trusted formula made for your body, not for fish tanks. Feel the difference with enhanced mental clarity, sustained energy, sharper focus, and protection against cognitive decline. And no, it won't turn your tongue blue. Head on over to twc.health/Turley and use code Turley to get 15% off plus free shipping. Again, that's twc.health/Turley. Use code Turley for 15% off. Now, let's not forget the indirect but documented connection to Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's campaign. Remember, Bragg was bankrolled by Soros. Soros donated $1 million to the Color of Change, which then turned around and supported Bragg's campaign. I mean, we learned this pattern from when Doge uncovered USAID, which we found out was just one big slush fund. So you pour tons of money into these so-called pro-democracy, pro-humanitarian organizations, which then in turn just fund to the tune of tens of millions of dollars far-left causes and candidates. It was all part of this very sophisticated funding mechanism that allowed billionaires to influence local politics while maintaining plausible deniability. That is until, of course, they were all effectively doged. Soros, unfortunately for him, is increasingly getting doged all over the world as well, and rightfully so. The scale of Soros' influence cannot be understated. It can't be understated. His Open Society foundations operates in over 120 countries, making one of the largest private philanthropic networks in human history. In the 2022 midterm elections alone, his Democracy PAC was the largest single donor for Democrats, contributing $125 million to progressive causes and candidates. But here's what makes Trump's RICO threat particularly significant here. RICO cases don't require direct evidence of criminal activity. They focus on patterns of behavior and organizational structures. So prosecutors could demonstrate that Soros's various foundations and political action committees operate as a coordinated enterprise to fund activities that cross legal boundaries. The implications would be absolutely enormous. And keep in mind, this is happening at the same time that Soros's Open Society foundations are experiencing massive losses in funding. So his son Alex recently announced that they were significantly reducing all operations in the European Union. And that announcement came on the heels of reports that Soros's foundations were experiencing mass layoffs following the leadership transition to his son Alex. So in an emailed statement, the organization announced plans to cut almost half, you heard that right, half of their global workforce. And many have noted that these massive cuts, along with the withdrawal from the EU, all raises the question of the continued relevance and influence of Soros's infamous plans for a new world order, which is exactly what he called it back in 1991. And that's really the rub in all of this. This isn't a matter of whether you support or oppose Trump's specific tactics in going after Soros. It's whether you understand the broader implications of billionaire political influence in American democracy. When a single individual can effectively purchase prosecutors, fund protest movements, and influence elections across multiple states simultaneously, we're no longer talking about living in a viable democracy. He can spew about democratic norms till he's blue in the face. Whenever a nation votes in a way that Soros doesn't like, he always writes checks to activists for the purpose of overthrowing the democratically elected government. We've seen it time and time and time again. The genius of Trump's approach is that it forces a long overdue conversation about the limits of political influence by invoking RICO, the same statute used against organized crime. Trump is essentially arguing that coordinated billionaire political networks have crossed the line from legitimate advocacy into something far more nefarious and far more dangerous. Trump's threat to monitor Soros and his associates signals a new phase in this conflict. The days of Soros being able to call the shots around the world as he sees fit are over. Many have asked on a number of occasions how and why this guy, of all people, is living so long. Perhaps it's so that he can see his evil legacy implode.